Solarium. On the 21st of June, at 56 degrees north, 14 degrees west, the sun was at 51.17 degrees solar elevation. Solarium. It chanced one day that Frey had gone to Scone, and gazed over all the world. But when he looked over into the northern region, he saw on an estate a house great and fair. And toward this house went a woman. When she raised her hands and opened the door before her, brightness gleamed from her hands, both over sky and sea, and all the worlds were illumined of her. On the 14th of May at 1400 hours, the sun was 32.07 degrees above the horizon.
Solarium. What felt like days of travel separated me from my everyday world, from my duties, responsibilities, and worries. My journey, this obligatory visit, began with seaside cities and towns of dense roads and buildings, gradually becoming more remote until there was nothing other than sparse fields and forest. The spaces of morning fog and mist changed everything about my perspective. I felt the rhythm of my breath and heart changing. The train slowed, and I moved to the open door, getting ready to arrive at the station. I watched the landscape. Green, gray, blue, white. I had a fleeting feeling that I had made the wrong decision by saying yes. I recognize a figure. He is waving his arms. He shouts, "Come on up!" It's my cousin. He shouted this to me from a hill as my train crept toward the station. His waving arms were signaling me to get off the train right then. "But I am not there yet," I call. He responds, "The sanatorium is closer from here." Obediently, I toss my bag alongside the tracks, on the dirt and among some beautiful white wildflowers. I hop down, feeling a little glee in my belly that brings a faint smile to the corners of my mouth. I turn back to see the train roll away. We meet and exchange polite formalities. I was never too close to this cousin. We plod on silently for a moment. I am feeling rather awkward now.
On the 19th of May at 1600 hours, the sun was 33 degrees above the horizon.
Eventually, he says, "Thinking about when you will leave already? I thought the same when I arrived." Well, you'll find time is different for us here. 3 weeks are the same as a day for us. Take time to acclimatize yourself. You'll find that it's not that easy. More steps in silence. "You have made a splendid recovery," I say. "Yes, thank you." I think so too, but I am not entirely well either. I don't reply. We step over branches and roots. We arrive at our destination. I am a bit surprised and uneasy with the emptiness here. Finally, I ask, "Where are all the guests?" "Oh, They are taking their rest cure. A rest cure. I read about such a thing once. A self-imposed, regulated time of convalescence, often out of doors in the light and air. A time to do nothing but sit and look into the space around you, maybe sleep for a bit.
On the 21st of June, at 1200 hours, the sun was 51.33 degrees above the horizon.
I was beginning to think I was in a very queer place. After checking in and putting down my bags, we returned outside to find the others, who were reclined in what they like to call the horizontal position. We found the guests laid out flat on chaises that had been wheeled outside for their sunlight therapy. I studied them, as if I could figure this place out based on their faces and postures, these rows and rows of melancholics. Once comfortably reclined, I look up. I try to let my mind go blank as instructed. I could not remember having used a more comfortable lounge chair. The chair, obviously new, was made of polished reddish-brown wood, and the mattress, covered with a soft fabric, actually consisted of 3 thick cushions that reached from the foot of the chair up over the back. And then attached to a string was a roll for my neck, neither too firm nor too soft, and it simply worked wonders.
At 900 hours, the sun was 53 degrees above the horizon.
I stare at the bright sky encircled by leaves and branches, like a framed painting or an ancient dome. I begin to notice the immensity of the blue sky and the bits that occasionally come into view to break it up and give it perspective. The various types of clouds, today they are silver gray with thin white tops, and the birds, mostly large and gliding, riding the light breeze with precision. Everything natural, not the usual skyline and jetliner trails.
56 degrees north, 14 degrees west, the sun was at 34 degrees above the horizon.
This place makes me focus on the sun. I feel closer to it here, up north. I am told we can store the sun's energy to carry us through the gray winter months. I am just not sure I get enough to make it until spring. I have become so tired. I notice that my feet are quite cold. My face feels flush and my heart starts racing. Maybe if I lie here a little longer, it will pass.
At 2100 hours on the 9th of September, the sun was set. Thomas Edison invented the light bulb in 1879 and showed that night could be turned to day. Seasonal affective disorder. Sunbaths. Auguste Rollier was a doctor of heliotherapy. Practicing in the early 1900s, he would prescribe 1 to 2 weeks of open-air treatment before light therapy began. And then it should begin only with the toes, slowly working your way up the body day after day to the delicate organ areas of the trunk. He believed sun should be dispersed drop by drop when nearing the chest. He wrote Le Pansement Solaire and La Cure des Soleils.
Such beautiful sounding titles for a text of medical regime. I dreamt that I flattened myself so that the sun could reach more of me, letting it shine on as much of me as possible.
At 1200 hours, on the 24th of July, the sun was at 54.1 degrees above the horizon. In 1903, the Nobel Prize for Medicine was awarded to a sunlight therapist, Dr. Niels Finsen, for tuberculosis treatment using ultraviolet light. In the same year, he wrote, "All that I have accomplished in my experiments with light and all that I have learned about its therapeutic value has come because I needed the light so much myself. I longed for it so."
After the regulation period of rest and a light lunch of greens and fish in the refectory, we were instructed to go for a walk. We began with a pebble driveway, so noisy underfoot, my ears too sensitive to the sound. Once through an old iron gate, the path led to a wood that was to eventually lead to a sunny field. As we turn a corner by an old stone wall, the sun blazes into my eyes and I can barely make out a field of grass.
On the 14th of May, at 900 hours, the sun was at 54.97 degrees above the horizon. John Lockhart Mummery, from Nothing New Under the Sun. Sunlight and ultraviolet rays are very popular just now as forms of medical treatment. But except for a very limited field, they come rather under the head of pseudo-magic than scientific treatment. And most of the benefit patients get from such treatment is due to their faith in the magical results, rather than in direct benefit. On the 14th of August, 1890, at 2200 hours, the sun was at minus 17 degrees above the horizon.
Almost as an eclipse, a heavenly image walks into my space. She is the most pale, gaunt, and weak-appearing apparition of loveliness I have ever seen. All but her cheeks. They are flush with color, a stain of pink wine completing an heavenly image. A long flowing dressing gown and the longest blonde locks, loose waves grazing her very small breasts. She passes. We don't exchange a word.
On the 17th of September, the sun was at 25.55 degrees east. For the Italians, sun worship and sunlight therapy went hand in hand. An old proverb states, "Dove non va il sole, va il medico." Where the sun does not go, the doctor does.
I had become dizzy now on this walk. How could I? I thought to have arrived so robust and healthy, and now this. I excuse myself from the company of my cousin by saying, "I think I will go and unpack some of my things." He responds, "Yes, of course. I would like to introduce you to the director later. He will be finished with his afternoon consultation soon. He is looking forward to meeting you." Before he could finish his enthusiastic musings about how he thinks the director and I will have so much to discuss and debate, I had already started to wander back to the building. I knew exactly where I wanted to be. I returned to my chaise to catch my breath. I drift into a dream.